Something that I keep coming to realization with, but always am forgetting, is that, and even right now, I'm losing touch and grip with um, the sensation of it. But that feeling, the field of feeling, is a tool space, and it's a powerful tool space that if we don't tend to understand it or become aware of it, we are puppets to it. But it's much deeper than just your emotional states, which you think is what causes people to be angry, but the feeling comes first, or intellectually angry. So feelings are this primal force of energy. It's an energy field, and we have increasingly reduced our awareness of this feeling space in our society. I think a lot of the things that have happened in the last 20 years are probably, contributing to that. Trauma contributes to, like, a prolonged, even if it's like low level trauma, it's doing something to the ability to feel. So societally wise, us millennials growing up, seeing the world in such a negative light early on after the 90s was a shift in the perspective of the consciousness, and are kind of shutting down to preserve. So a lot of the comedic nihilism that is inside of us is the shutting down of the feeling states. But that is our fatal flaw, because our feeling states are our power, or a good chunk of power. I think people are reawakening their feeling states, but I feel that the specific vocabulary isn't quite on the note. What I mean by is that people are intellectualizing their traumas and understanding them, which is great. It adds a lot of freedom to the self and mobility to the self, but there's more to it than that, and that is being able to hone the feeling states, taking ownership of the feeling states, taking it up a notch past the nihilism and going back into ownership of the self, ownership of your fate, if you want to say. But kind of understanding that the system exists, and yes, you can feel nihilistic and accept that with stoicism, but also be utilizing it as a tool afterward. And that means accessing feeling states to your will. So instead of shutting off completely for lengths of time, which is something I think we've gotten used to with COVID and being inside the house for so long and not interacting with people. It was a good that was a good playground for practicing with feelings, and so that is also shut out. We're often more angry than we are anything else, so what we are feeling is distress, which is more prolonged trauma to what we have already felt for the past 20 years. So with the emotional wisdom that we have gained in intellectualizing our traumas, it's time to begin controlling the feeling states. And we already do that with intellectualizing our ways of being, and which, that already gives you enough, like a good amount of control. But now move into the feeling states, find out what those are, because there's such a rich and vibrant field of existence that we have really let slip through our hands. We remember, but it's kind of not often enough that we are feeling these things. So years ago, I had received the message to make joy, which I understood completely, and it was beautiful and charged. And it's even still knowing these things, getting gnosis of these beautiful messages of universal unity. You are human and you just fall back into, I don't want to say forgetting, because you still know, like there is still some kind of structure in your mind that reminds you here and there, but not embodying. And if you don't embody these things, then you might as well be asleep anyway with the rest of everybody because you're not even working on it. But it's hard. It's freaking hard. Being afraid of other people, being afraid of the government, being afraid of just what is going to happen is taking us out of the ability to feel joy and feel these states. So we really have to put the steps in to make it happen for us, because no one's going to make it happen for us. It's that, typical, what's the word? Putting in the work. I don't know. You got to put in the work. And it's so hard. Even when I know and I'm trying to feel it, if I try to feel it without assistance, I'm not getting anywhere. So I need to meditate more, obviously. I need to do yoga. I need to do things that put me inside of my vessel, inside of myself, versus externalizing myself. It's weird because it's like there's two coins to both internal and external. Two sides, two internal and external, both of them. So let's say there's 4. It's a cube. It's a cube of duality, if that makes sense. So, maybe not necessarily a cube, but like some kind of weird shape, okay? The way that it goes is like this paradoxal infinity, what is it? Torus, okay? Bear with me for a second. Okay, going within allows you to connect without. Externalizing yourself, though, in a negative way, breaks down the internal. So it's these different facets connected to each other, like a positive and negative charge of dualities. Okay. And the paradox is that it feeds into itself in this weird feedback loop. So I think that's what I mean by duality of opposites. So I guess how do I look at this? Okay, I want to use a different example. The directional current of the feedback loop is determined by a positive or negative intention, a within without intention. So don't think of positive and negative as like connotations for that. I'm talking about a direction. Okay. I'm getting this like string theory type of like visual where it's like, yes, this infinity torus thing, right? Like a string theory infinity torus of negative and positive directional charges that move in different ways and exchange an evolutionary system of information. I don't know. I drew it and I don't know what to make of it anymore. None of this has previously been like established in my adventures of pondering philosophy. So I have no idea where this fits, but something to think about, I guess. Where does the perception come in? Because I see inward and outward charges. Inward negative charge, outward positive charge, or whatever. Like, I guess that would be the energetic charge of it. But where is the intentional driver of this? I guess it's inside with, or in the scaffolding of it. I don't know. I have to go back to my point. My point is the feeling field. I suppose that could be the thing that is the directional mind. So there's different kinds of state of consciousness depending on what modality you're using, which is your mental space, your emotional space, your feeling space. These can be all utilized as one to move and conjure momentum. That's why you would use intellectualism to drive feelings. And this is what people do when they control the feelings of the masses. Unfortunately, it's easy to fall into that. So having that kind of level of awareness is super helpful. But then applying this level of awareness into energetic action, accessing the feeling states for the propulsion of whatever magnetism you want to achieve in the moment. So one of the things that I experienced today was the state of consciousness that is worship. So it could be anything. Anything could be directing your worship. And again, with the directions, is it externalized or is it internalized? Now, this is different because it has a different connotation for this, because you want to externalize your worship. Not. Oh, here's where it gets weird. Okay, scratch that. I guess it all depends on what you're plugging into, because you can internalize your worship. You can self-worship yourself, and that is a very special, energetic communion, which is totally great. You do not want to be worshiping something that is destructive and causes schisms in the law of one. Okay, here we go. Okay, that is one of the rules. That helps determine, it helps determine a level of intelligence of this realm of consciousness on like how to determine what should be done here. So, okay, law of one. Law of one means honoring the one, honoring the whole, trying to do no harm, making atonements for whatever existence that you must adhere to, but not actively trying to break apart and separate the unity, okay? So that can give you a framework, a moral framework of how to exist honoring the system, okay? It also has to do with consent. See, all these things fall into the law of one, but anyway, the, I guess, details of that is following consent, honoring schisms and healing schisms, actively working to maintain the system in harmony. If you're not doing that, then you are contributing to separation in the system. You are not following the law of one. Does that make you a terrible person? It depends if your intention is terrible. But the levels of awareness can help you get back on the right track. It doesn't mean like you're like irredeemable, horrible, yada yada. I mean, unless you are the action that is making horrible things happen. If you are what do you call it? If you are someone who got swept into the tide of the feeling state controlled by something else, then it is just your duty to kind of realize that and correct. But that doesn't mean like you can't do that. Okay. It might take a lot of work. It might never be finished, that work. But your work from that point forward is necessary and witnessed. Okay, back to that. So, forgot what I was like originally saying. The moral of this talk is to remember that you have access to feeling states. Realize that we haven't been in our feeling states other than, kind of negative feeling states for a really long time. And it's important for us to grasp back our feeling states. It's important for us to command those feeling states now that we have intellectualized and commanded our emotions, controlled our emotions. Now it's time to, I wouldn't say control our feeling states, but command our feeling states. To say, this is the energetic field that I'm choosing to fall into right now, to utilize it as a tool to perpetuate momentum in my magnetism attraction. I think I'm finally understanding one of the 12 principles right now. I think I am finally falling into an understanding about the law of magnetism, because that's what it's starting to feel like. Using the feeling energetic field is tuning your magnetism. The more that you fall into whatever expression, because there's millions and millions of vibrant expressions of all different sorts, do your thing. But try, please, for the love of unity, try to abide by the law of one. Try to be kind to the system that you belong to. Imagine yourself as a cell in a body, okay? And you'll be golden. Live well. That is living well. Don't worry about the rules of man, because those are all twisted in so many different concepts that have added so much confusion, manipulation, what else? Distortion to the law of one. Get back to your simple self, the one that vibes with nature, the one that feels connection. Remember what those are. Remember how it feels to do harm. Hopefully you understand this, because I remember when I was a kid, this is one of these feeling states that you recognize when you're at a school or, interacting with other kids, is that if you guys are not harmonizing with each other, it doesn't feel good, right? It doesn't feel good to be an outcast. It doesn't feel good to be seen as different. And it also doesn't feel good to do harm to others. Just in a way that you know better, right? If kids are lashing out because they're angry about other things and projecting themselves, that's another situation to be had. But it didn't feel good to be unkind. Okay? You can feel the toxicity in your gut space, in your sacral chakra, right? Or sacral chakra, sorry. That something's wrong. Something's off with that. Vibrationally, you're not doing something right? You want to vibrate in connection with others. You want to feel good. You want to feel that wavelength that you share, which is a great feeling. So, abide by the law of one. Be kind to others that aren't like you. If somebody is doing something unkind and it bothers you so deeply that your vibration changes, right? Do what you must to still abide by the law of one, and that usually means distancing yourself from their frequency so that you're not vibrating with that. And the less attention that gets, the less energy it has in the system, at least. Okay? So distance yourself from toxic, bad, low vibrations and remember to feel and know what that feels like. Remember what you're feeling. Use all the tools that you have of knowledge that we have gained, not just to intellectualize our traumas, our developmental stages, to know what was wrong with them, to come to peace with that, to transmute it into power, empowerment. Now what? Now that you've harnessed that, what is next? I tell you, there is a lot next. There is a plethora of user mode beauty for you to discover. So go on and discover it. That is my talk for today. Thank you. That's my TED Talk. I'll talk to you later. Bye.